Theo Johnson's hands shook as he pushed open the warehouse door. What he saw stopped his heart. The paralyzed woman who begged for leftovers every Tuesday was stitching up a homeless man's infected arm. Blood on her gloves, lanterns casting shadows, 30 desperate faces watching. "You need to leave," Vanessa said from her wheelchair, needle steady despite everything. "Unless you're here to help us survive." That's when Theo realized he'd been feeding an angel, not a beggar. And her secret was about to cost them everything. "I thought she was stealing from me." That's what Theo told the police 6 hours later. Blood on his shirt, sitting in that warehouse, wondering how his whole life had just changed. But let me take you back 3 months to the first Tuesday night. Vanessa Reed rolled into his diner and asked for something that would lead to this moment. Theo's diner sat on Payne Avenue in Cleveland, like the last candle in a blackout. Neon sign buzzing, vinyl booths patched with duct tape. The smell of coffee and bacon grease that had soaked into the walls over 40 years. 47 years old, widowed 3 years, single father to 12-year-old Trevor. The diner was all Theo had left after burying his wife Marie, and some mornings he woke up, not sure if he was running a business or just hiding from the world in his dead father-in-law's restaurant. Marie had died slow. Pancreatic cancer. 18 months from diagnosis to funeral. She'd spent her last good weeks volunteering at the homeless shelter on East 55th, handing out blankets even when she could barely stand. "Suffering shouldn't be wasted, Theodore," she'd said, her voice already thin. "If my pain can teach me to see other people's pain, then it's not for nothing." Theo hadn't understood then. He was too angry. Angry at God, at doctors, at the insurance company that denied her the clinical trial that might have bought her another year. After she died, he sold their house, moved into the apartment above the diner with Trevor, and spent 3 years going through motions. Cook, serve, clean, sleep, repeat. Waiting for the day it would feel like living again instead of just not dying. Then on a Tuesday in early August, she walked in. Not walked. Rolled. Vanessa Reed. 36, but looked older. Thin in a way that said she'd been skipping meals for months. Wheelchair that squeaked like a dying bird. Dark circles under her eyes. But those eyes, they held something Theo recognized. The look Marie had in her last year. Purpose burning through exhaustion like a candle that refuses to go out even in a hurricane. It was 9:45. 15 minutes to closing. Last customer had left an hour ago. Theo was wiping down tables when he heard the squeak of her wheel. She didn't come to the counter. Just positioned herself by the kitchen door, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the floor tiles. Theo walked over. "Can I help you, ma'am?" "I'm sorry to bother you." Her voice was soft but steady. Not weak. There's a difference. "If you have any leftovers tonight, anything you were going to throw away, I'd be grateful for them." Theo's first instinct was to say no. He got panhandlers weekly. Most wanted cash. Some wanted food. All had stories. He'd learned to keep his wallet closed and his heart guarded because Cleveland had 10,000 sad stories and he couldn't carry them all. But something about this woman stopped him. Maybe it was the wheelchair. Maybe it was the way she asked, not demanding, not performing poverty. Just asking with the dignity of someone who'd rather starve than beg, but had run out of choices. Maybe it was the ghost of Marie whispering in his memory. "See her, Theodore. Really see her." "Give me a minute," Theo said. He went into the kitchen and packed up what was left. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, 2 pieces of cornbread. He put it in styrofoam containers, double-bagged it so the weight wouldn't tear through. When he came back out, she was still there, hands still folded, waiting. "Here you go," he said, handing her the bags. She looked up at him then, and for just a second, her mask slipped. Gratitude flooded her face, not the performative kind, the real kind that says you've just given someone a reason to keep going another day. "Thank you," she whispered. "God sees your kindness, Mr. Johnson," Theo Johnson. Mr. Johnson. God won't forget this. She balanced the bags on her lap, turned her wheelchair, and rolled out into the August night. Trevor came out of the back office where he'd been doing homework. Who was that? Someone who needed food. Why didn't you charge her? Because it was going in the trash anyway, son. Might as well feed someone. Trevor thought about that, then shrugged and went back to his algebra. Theo stood at the window and watched her disappear down Payne Avenue, and something stirred in his chest. Something that felt almost like purpose. The next Tuesday, 9:45 exactly, she came back. Same wheelchair, same squeaky wheel, same position by the kitchen door, same soft request. Theo had packed extra that night. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, coleslaw, biscuits. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, she said. My name is Vanessa Reed. Nice to meet you properly, Miss Reed. She smiled small, tired reel and left. The third Tuesday, Trevor asked, Is she coming every week now? Looks like it. Why don't you just give her fresh food, like make her a meal? Theo thought about how to explain it. She's not asking for charity, son. She's asking for rescue. Leftovers are food that would have been wasted. There's dignity in that. She's not taking something made for her, she's saving something from the trash. You understand? Trevor frowned. Not really. You will someday. By the fourth Tuesday in September, Vanessa's arrival had become part of Theo's routine. He started cooking extra on Tuesday nights, not obvious, just an extra meatloaf. A bigger pot of soup, knowing it would go to someone who needed it. He never told her, never made it weird. Just packed up the leftovers, handed them over, and watched her roll back into the Cleveland darkness. He learned small things about her over those weeks. She never complained, never asked for specific food, never told him her story without being asked. Once in late September, when it started getting cold, he noticed her coat was too thin. Miss Reed, you got somewhere warm to stay? I'm fine, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for asking. That wasn't an answer, but Theo didn't push. In October, he noticed her hands starting to shake when she took the bags. Not from cold, from exhaustion that went deeper than sleep could fix. You all right? Just tired. Long day. You working? A pause. Then, something like that. The first Tuesday in November, everything changed. November 3rd. Temperature dropped to 32 degrees. Wind came off Lake Erie like it had knives in it. Theo had the heat cranked in the diner, but outside was brutal. Vanessa came at 9:45. Theo had her bags ready: turkey soup, fresh bread, apple pie. He'd made the pie that afternoon. Told himself it was for the display case, but he'd packed 3 slices for her. When she reached for the bags, her hands were shaking so bad she almost dropped them. Theo caught the bag before it fell, and that's when he saw it. Her coat had fallen open. Underneath, she wore scrubs. Faded, stained, but medical scrubs. A stethoscope hung around her neck tucked inside her coat, and on her wrist, visible now, bandages wrapped tight. Old blood had soaked through dark brown against the white gauze. Miss Reed, you're hurt. She pulled her coat closed fast. Old injury. Axe up in the cold. You need a doctor. I'm fine. But her voice cracked. Thank you for the food, Mr. Johnson. God sees what you're doing. He'll remember when it counts. She left before he could ask anything else. Theo stood at the window watching her wheel down Payne Avenue, and every instinct Marie had trained into him over 22 years of marriage started screaming. Something was wrong, not dangerous wrong, but wrong in the way that meant someone was carrying a burden too heavy for one person and hadn't figured out they were about to collapse under the weight. Trevor, lock up. His son looked up from his phone. Where are you going? Just need some air. Dad, it's freezing. Lock up. I'll be back in 20. Theo grabbed his coat and stepped into the November cold. 2 blocks ahead, Vanessa's wheelchair caught the streetlight, then turned onto East 40th. He followed. She moved with purpose, not wandering. left on East 40th, right on Superior, deeper into the part of Cleveland where streetlights had been shot out years ago and nobody bothered replacing them, where abandoned factories lined the streets like tombstones for industries that had died before Theo was born. After 10 minutes, she stopped in front of Cleveland Metalworks. The building was 4 stories of dead brick, windows boarded or broken, graffiti covering the ground floor, a chain-link fence that had been cut open years ago. The kind of place you drove past fast with your doors locked. Vanessa looked left, looked right, careful practiced like she'd done this 100 times, then wheeled herself toward a side entrance. Theo's heart pounded. Was she homeless? Living in an abandoned warehouse. Jesus Christ, and he'd been giving her leftovers when she was probably sleeping on concrete floors. He waited until she was inside, then crossed the street and approached the door. It was cracked open, held in place by a brick wedged against the frame. Warm air leaked out, impossible because heat meant electricity. And electricity meant someone was paying bills on a building that should have been condemned a decade ago. Theo pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The hallway was dark, except for a glow at the far end. Industrial hallway, concrete floors, peeling paint. He moved toward the light, his footsteps echoing. The smell hit him before the sight: antiseptic blood, unwashed bodies, and underneath it all, something that smelled like desperate hope, clinging to life with broken fingernails. He reached the end of the hallway and looked into the main warehouse floor. Time stopped. The warehouse had been transformed. Lanterns hung from chains bolted to the ceiling, casting warm light over rows of cots, 30, maybe more, filled with people. Homeless people. Sick people. A woman in her 20s rocking a baby with a fever. An old man coughing into a blood-stained rag. A teenager with his leg wrapped in gauze that had soaked through crimson. A middle-aged woman shivering under 2 thin blankets, her face gray with infection. And in the center of it all, Vanessa Reed. Still in her wheelchair, stethoscope around her neck, surgical gloves on her hands. She was bent over a man on a cot, stitching up a wound on his forearm with steady hands and total focus. "Temperature's dropping," she said to someone Theo couldn't see. "Get 2 more blankets on Mr. Patterson and check if we have any ibuprofen left. We're almost out." A young woman with purple hair and tired eyes appeared from behind a stack of cardboard boxes. "We've got maybe 10 pills. Make them last. Prioritize the fevers over the pain." Vanessa tied off her stitch, cut the thread, and started bandaging the man's arm. "Mr. Patterson, keep this dry. Come back Thursday so I can check for infection." The man, 50-something, weathered face, grateful eyes, nodded. "Thank you, Miss Vanessa. You're an angel." "I am a nurse. Angels don't need band-aids." Theo must have made a sound, a sharp breath, a footstep, something, because Vanessa's head snapped up like she'd been electrocuted. Their eyes met across 30 feet of impossible reality. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Vanessa's face did something Theo had never seen before. It crumbled. Not into tears. Into the expression of someone who'd been running on fumes and willpower, and just realized the engine had finally completely died. "Mr. Johnson." Her voice cracked like ice breaking. "You shouldn't be here." Theo stepped into the warehouse, his brain trying desperately to make sense of what his eyes were showing him. What is this? Exactly what it looks like. Vanessa wheeled toward him, and he saw it all. Now the exhaustion carved into her face, the blood on her gloves, the weight of 30 lives pressing down on shoulders that were already carrying paralysis and poverty. It's a clinic, for people nobody else will treat. A clinic. Theo's voice came out flat. In an abandoned warehouse. Yes. Run by you. In a wheelchair. Her jaw locked. Yes. Using my food, the leftovers I've been giving you, to feed these people. Yes. She said it like a confession and a challenge at the same time. Theo looked around. Really looked. A makeshift pharmacy in the corner, cardboard boxes labeled with markers sorted by medication type. A hand-drawn chart on the wall tracking patient names, symptoms, medications, allergies. Supplies organized with military precision. This wasn't chaos. This was organization born from desperation and sustained by will. "How many?" Theo asked. "How many what? How many people have you treated here?" Vanessa's shoulders sagged. "I stopped counting at 100. Some I saved, some I couldn't." Her voice went quiet. "But every single one got more care here than they'd get dying on the street." The purple-haired girl moved beside Vanessa, protective. "V, you want me to call someone?" "No." Vanessa held up a hand. "Mr. Johnson isn't here to destroy us." She looked at Theo with eyes that dared him to prove her wrong. "Are you—" Theo's head was spinning. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I need to understand. All of it. From the beginning." Vanessa closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, they were wet, but her voice was steady. "All right. You want the whole story, I'll give it to you." She wheeled backward, positioning herself in the center of the warehouse, like she was taking a stand. "I was a nurse. 7 years at Metro Health Medical Center. ER mostly. Trauma, gunshots, car accidents, heart attacks. I was good at it. Really good. Saved lives. Got awards. Thought I'd found my calling." She paused, and pain flickered across her face. 3 years ago, I'm driving home from a double shift. 3 a.m. I'm exhausted, but I'm careful. I stop at a red light on Euclid Avenue. Semi-truck comes out of nowhere. Driver fell asleep. He runs the red light going 50. T-bones my car on the driver's side. I wake up in the ICU 3 days later. Can't feel my legs. Can't feel anything below my waist. Surgeon tells me my spine is crushed at L2. Tells me I'll never walk again. Tells me I'm lucky to be alive. Theo's chest tightened. Insurance covered the surgeries. 6 of them. Covered physical therapy. Covered the wheelchair. Disability checks covered my rent barely. But when I tried to go back to work, her voice turned bitter. Every hospital, every clinic, every urgent care center, every doctor's office said the same thing. We don't have the infrastructure to accommodate a nurse in a wheelchair. It's a liability issue. We're sure you understand. Jesus, Theo whispered. So I stayed home for a year, watched daytime TV, applied to jobs online, got rejected, applied again, rejected again, watched my savings disappear, started missing rent, got eviction notices. She gestured at the warehouse around them. And every night I'd wheel past tent cities and bus shelters and see people bleeding, infected, dying of things I could fix with basic supplies and basic knowledge. People with infected wounds, diabetics without insulin, asthmatics without inhalers, people dying because they couldn't afford $20 of antibiotics. Her voice rose, anger burning through exhaustion. So 6 months ago, I stopped applying for jobs. I came here. Someone had left that side door unlocked. The electricity still worked, probably running off a neighbor's meter or something illegal I don't want to know about. I brought my old medical kit. Fixed one infected wound on a woman named Sarah. She told her friends. They told their friends. More people came. I spent my last disability check on gauze and antibiotics. When that ran out, I started asking restaurants for food to keep everyone fed while I worked. And my diner was one of them, Theo said slowly. Your diner was the only one that said yes. Every Tuesday for 3 months, you've been feeding my patients without knowing it. Vanessa's voice cracked. You've been feeding 34 people, Mr. Johnson. Not just me. The warehouse went silent, except for someone coughing in the back row and a baby whimpering. Theo looked at the faces around him. Really looked. These weren't statistics, weren't homeless stereotypes. They were people. A veteran with PTSD and an infected foot. A single mother with pneumonia. A teenager who'd aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. A grandfather with diabetes who couldn't afford insulin. And Vanessa Reed, paralyzed and penniless, was keeping them alive. This is illegal, Theo said quietly. Probably. Vanessa lifted her chin. Practicing medicine without a proper license. Trespassing. Maybe a dozen other violations I don't have the energy to worry about. She met his eyes, and fire burned there, the same fire Marie had in her last months, the refusal to surrender even when the war was lost. "So if you came here to report me, Mr. Johnson, then do it. Call the police. Shut us down. Send these people back to dying in alleys and under bridges. But I won't apologize for saving lives just because I do it from a wheelchair in an abandoned building." Silence crashed over the warehouse like a wave. Theo stood there, his mind racing through options, through consequences, through the question of what Marie would do if she were standing here instead of buried in Riverside Cemetery. And he knew. God help him, he knew exactly what she'd do. He pulled out his phone. Vanessa's face went pale. "I see." "No," Theo said. "You don't." He started dialing. "I'm not calling the police, Miss Reed. I'm calling for backup." He held up his phone. "My sister-in-law's a civil rights attorney. If anyone can figure out how to legalize this operation, it's her. And I'm calling my food supplier. You're not surviving on leftovers anymore. You're getting real supplies. Tonight." Vanessa's mouth opened. No sound came out. The purple-haired girl, Carmen, grabbed Vanessa's shoulder. "V, did he just—" "I think he did," Vanessa whispered. Theo was already on the first call. "Nina? It's Theo. I need you to come to Cleveland Metalworks on East 40th Street, right now. Bring every legal pad you own." His sister-in-law's voice was sharp with concern. "Theo, it's almost 11 at night. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Something's right. I just found someone who's been running an underground medical clinic for the homeless out of an abandoned warehouse, and we're about to make it legitimate." A pause. Then, "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Second call. Marcus, his food supplier. "Marcus, I need everything you've got that's about to expire. Canned goods, bread, produce, meat, everything. Delivered to East 40th and Superior, tonight." "Theo, brother, it's almost 11. I'll pay double, triple. I'll explain when you get here. Just trust me." Another pause. "You in some kind of trouble?" "No, but I found someone who needs help more than I need sleep. Will you come?" Marcus sighed. "Give me the address." Third call. Dr. Patel, the pediatrician from Trevor's school who'd mentioned wanting to volunteer somewhere. Fourth call. James, the contractor who owed Theo a favor after Theo had kept his diner open late for James's daughter's birthday party. Fifth call. Pastor Raymond from Cleveland Avenue Baptist Church. Sixth call. Monica, a nurse who'd worked with Marie during her cancer treatment. By the time Theo finished making calls, Vanessa was crying silently in her wheelchair, tears running down her face without sound. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Theo crouched down so they were eye to eye. "Because my wife spent her last year volunteering at homeless shelters, even when cancer was eating her alive. She died believing the world was good, believing people would choose kindness if you gave them the chance. And I've spent 3 years wondering if she was wrong." His voice caught. "Watching you save lives from a wheelchair in an abandoned warehouse, that's the first time since we buried her that I've believed she was right. So let me help. Please." Vanessa reached out and grabbed his hand. "Okay." 20 minutes later, Nina burst through the door like a force of nature. Briefcase in one hand, legal pads in the other, fire in her eyes. She looked around the warehouse at the patients at Vanessa at the makeshift clinic, held together with duct tape and determination. "Oh, hell yes," she said. She marched straight to Vanessa. "Nina Martinez, civil rights attorney. I'm going to need you to tell me everything. Every supply source, every patient interaction, every legal gray area. Then we're going to build a fortress of paperwork around this place so bulletproof that the city won't know whether to give you a fine or a medal. You ready?" Vanessa nodded, speechless. "Good. Start talking." While Vanessa talked, people arrived. Marcus pulled up in his delivery truck with 2 employees unloading crate after crate of food. Dr. Patel walked in, took one look around, and started examining patients. James the contractor began measuring walls and muttering about building codes. Pastor Raymond showed up with 10 members of his congregation carrying blankets and first aid supplies. Monica the nurse started checking IVs and updating the medication chart. By 2 in the morning, the warehouse had been transformed. Hot soup being served on plates instead of eaten from styrofoam. A proper pharmacy corner with labeled shelves. 2 volunteer doctors and 4 nurses working in rotation. Building plans being sketched. Legal documents being drafted. Theo found Vanessa by the far wall, watching everything with an expression like she was witnessing a miracle in real time. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "For 3 years, I've felt useless. Like the accident took everything: my career, my purpose, my worth. The only time I felt human was here helping people everyone else threw away." She turned to look at him, and her eyes were full of tears and hope at the same time. "You just gave me back my life, Theo. You never lost it. You were just carrying it alone." He nodded at the volunteers working around them. "Now you've got help. Use it." Nina appeared beside them, flipping through her legal pad. "All right, here's the plan. We're filing for nonprofit status. I'm calling it the Vanessa Free Clinic, unless you hate that name. We're getting a business license, medical license, liability insurance, the full arsenal. It's going to take time. I've got connections at City Hall who owe me favors. We'll fast-track everything we can." "How long?" Vanessa asked. 2 months if we're lucky, and I call in every favor I've got. 4 months if we hit bureaucratic roadblocks. 6 months worst-case scenario." Nina looked around. "In the meantime, we need to be smart. No advertising, no social media posts. Word of mouth only. And we need more medical professionals willing to volunteer under the radar until we're fully legitimate." Dr. Patel walked over, wiping his hands. "I know at least 6 doctors who'd work here. Good people, burned out by insurance companies denying treatment and hospital administrators caring more about profit margins than patients. Give them a place to practice real medicine again and they'll show up." "Get me their contact information," Nina said. "We'll vet them and bring them in slowly." A patient called out from across the warehouse. The man Vanessa had been stitching up when Theo arrived, Mr. Patterson. His color looked better. He was sitting up, smiling. "Miss Vanessa," he said, his voice stronger now. "You saved my life again." Vanessa wheeled over, checked his pulse, examined his bandage, and smiled. "God saved your life, Mr. Patterson. I just cleaned the wound." "God works through people," the old man said, reaching out to squeeze her hand. "And he's working through you." Theo watched them and felt something unlock in his chest that had been frozen since Marie died. This was what she'd meant. This was purpose. This was good trouble, finding good people and refusing to let them fight alone. By 4 in the morning, Theo was exhausted but lighter than he'd been in 3 years. He said goodbye to Vanessa, promised to come back the next day with Trevor to help however they needed, and drove home through empty Cleveland streets. Trevor was asleep on the couch. Theo covered him with a blanket, kissed his forehead, and climbed the stairs to his bedroom. On his nightstand, Marie smiled at him from their wedding photo. Young, healthy, full of the unshakable belief that goodness was stronger than suffering. "Found one baby," Theo whispered to the picture. "Someone fighting like you did. Someone who needs help. Thought you'd want me to show up for them." He knelt beside the bed, first time he'd prayed since Marie's funeral, and said, "God, if you're listening, protect that woman. Protect that clinic. Protect those people. Let something good grow from all this pain. And help me be the kind of man Marie thought I was." He climbed into bed and fell asleep within minutes. Across Cleveland, in an abandoned warehouse that wasn't abandoned anymore, Vanessa Reed fell asleep in her wheelchair for the first time in months without nightmares because she finally wasn't alone. But at 6:15 in the morning, Theo's phone screamed him awake. Carmen's voice shaking with panic. "Theo, you need to come back. Right now." A building inspector just showed up with 2 police officers. They're saying we've got 1 hour to evacuate before they condemn the building and arrest everyone inside for trespassing. Vanessa chained herself to the pharmacy shelves. She's refusing to leave. Theo, they're going to drag her out and throw her in jail and let these people die on the street. Please, we need you. Theo was already pulling on his pants. I'm coming. Don't let them take her. I'm 5 minutes away. He grabbed his keys, ran down the stairs, and burst out into the November morning. The war for the Vanessa Free Clinic had just begun, and Theo Johnson was about to discover that saving lives was the easy part. Keeping them saved was going to cost everything. Theo hit 50 miles an hour down Payne Avenue, running 2 red lights he pretended not to see. His phone was on speaker. Carmen's panicked voice filling the truck. They're saying it's illegal operation of a medical facility. Trespassing. Unlicensed practice. Theo, there's a police sergeant here talking about arrests. Don't let them touch her. Tell Vanessa I'm 2 minutes out. He could hear shouting in the background. A man's voice, official and cold. Ma'am, you need to unlock those chains right now, or I'm adding obstruction to the charges. Then Vanessa's voice steady despite everything. You'll have to drag me out. These people need care, and I'm not abandoning them. Theo slammed on the brakes outside Cleveland Metalworks. The scene was worse than he'd imagined. 2 police cruisers parked sideways across the entrance. A city vehicle with building inspector printed on the door. And standing in front of the warehouse, a small crowd. Carmen, Dr. Patel, 3 patients who'd been inside, all looking terrified. Theo jumped out of his truck and ran toward the door. A police officer stepped in front of him. Young guy, maybe 25, hand on his belt. Sir, you can't go in there. Building's being condemned. That's my clinic. Your clinic. The officer's eyebrows went up. You're aware this is an abandoned building, right? Illegal occupancy, unlicensed medical practice. I'm aware you're about to throw a paralyzed woman in jail for saving lives. Theo's voice came out harder than he intended. Now get out of my way, or arrest me too. The officer blinked, caught off guard. A voice called from inside the warehouse. Let him through, Officer Matthews. The officer stepped aside. Theo pushed through the door. Inside, the morning light coming through the broken windows made everything look worse. What had seemed organized and hopeful at 2 a.m. now looked exactly like what it was, a desperate operation running on fumes in a building that should have been demolished years ago. In the center of the warehouse, Vanessa sat in her wheelchair, both arms chained to the metal shelving unit that held their makeshift pharmacy. Her face was set like stone, but Theo could see her hands shaking. Standing in front of her were 2 men. One wore a cheap suit and held a clipboard, the building inspector. The other wore a police sergeant's uniform, arms crossed, face showing the tired annoyance of someone who'd rather be dealing with real crime. Mr. Johnson, I presume. The inspector looked at his clipboard. Theodore Johnson, owner of Theo's Diner on Payne Avenue. That's right. You're aware this building is condemned property, that operating any kind of facility here is illegal. I'm aware that 34 people were getting medical care they couldn't get anywhere else. The inspector's face hardened. They were getting unregulated medical treatment in a structurally unsound building with code violations I can't even count. The electrical system alone is a fire hazard. The plumbing doesn't work. There's black mold in the walls. This place is a death trap. A death trap that's kept people alive, Vanessa said from her wheelchair, her voice cutting through the warehouse like a knife. How many of your properly regulated hospitals turn these people away? How many of your safe legal facilities let them die on the street because they didn't have insurance? The sergeant sighed. Ma'am, I understand you're trying to help, but the law says it's better to let people die legally than save them illegally. Vanessa's voice cracked. Is that what you're telling me? I'm telling you that you can't chain yourself to a shelf and run a clinic out of a condemned building. The sergeant's voice softened slightly. Look, I get it, I really do. My brother's homeless. I know how hard it is out there. But this isn't the answer. Then what is? Vanessa demanded. Tell me, what's the legal way to help people that every hospital refuses to treat? Silence. The inspector cleared his throat. That's not my department. My job is to enforce building codes, and this building fails every single one. I'm giving you 1 hour to evacuate all patients and remove your property. After that, we're boarding this place up permanently. And if I refuse, then Sergeant Williams arrests you for trespassing and obstruction, and we evacuate the patients anyway. The inspector didn't look happy about it. I'm sorry, I really am. But I can't let people occupy a building this dangerous. Theo stepped forward. What would it take to make this building legal? The inspector looked at him like he'd suggested flying to Mars. You're serious? Dead serious. What would it take? The inspector flipped through pages on his clipboard. Let's see. Electrical system needs complete rewiring. Plumbing needs to be replaced right now. You've got maybe 2 working toilets and 1 sink. HVAC system is non-existent. You'd need proper ventilation, fire suppression, emergency exits, handicap, accessibility, medical waste disposal. He looked up. You're looking at $200,000 minimum. Probably closer to $300,000 once you get into it. Theo's stomach dropped. He didn't have $300,000. He barely had $3,000 in savings. How long would the work take? Assuming you could get permits, find contractors, pass inspections. The inspector shrugged. 6 months, maybe 8. And in the meantime, these people just die on the street. In the meantime, you find them care at actual medical facilities. They tried that. Carmen spoke up from near the door, her voice sharp. Every single person here tried that. They got turned away. No insurance, no care. That's how it works. The sergeant looked uncomfortable. There are free clinics with 6-month waiting lists. Dr. Patel interrupted. He'd come inside during the conversation. I volunteer at 3 of them. They're overwhelmed. People die waiting for appointments. The inspector rubbed his face. Look, I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. And the rules say this building is condemned. I'm giving you until noon. After that, anyone still inside gets arrested. He turned and walked toward the door. The sergeant lingered for a moment, looking at Vanessa. Ma'am, please unlock those chains. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Vanessa's jaw was set. I'm not leaving. Then I'll have to arrest you. So arrest me. Theo moved between them. Sergeant, give us a minute, please. The sergeant looked at him, then at Vanessa, then sighed. You've got 5 minutes. Then I'm coming back with bolt cutters. He walked out. The moment the door closed, Theo turned to Vanessa. Unlock the chains. No. Vanessa. No. Her voice was steel. I spent a year feeling useless, worthless. Like my life ended when that truck hit me. Then I found this place and these people and a reason to keep breathing. I'm not walking away. She caught herself. I'm not rolling away just because some bureaucrat says the building isn't up to code. They'll arrest you. Let them. And then what? You think you can run a clinic from jail? You think these people get care when you're locked up? That landed. Vanessa's face crumpled slightly. Theo knelt beside her wheelchair. Listen to me. This isn't over. We're not giving up. But we need time. Time to get permits to raise money to do this right. If you get arrested, you're done. They'll use it against you when we apply for licenses. You'll never practice medicine legally again. I'm not practicing legally now. But you could be. Nina's working on it. We just need time. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. These people don't have time, Theo. Mr. Patterson's infection will come back in a week without antibiotics. Sarah's baby needs breathing treatments every 6 hours. Michael's diabetes. Her voice broke. Time is the one thing they don't have. Then we buy them time. We move them somewhere safe. We find temporary solutions while we fix this building. But we do it smart, not by getting you arrested. Carmen came over, putting her hand on Vanessa's shoulder. V, he's right. You can't help anyone from a cell. Dr. Patel nodded. My clinic's small, but I can take 5 or 6 patients. I know other doctors. We'll spread them out. Keep everyone safe until we can reopen here. Vanessa looked around the warehouse at the people she'd saved, the clinic she'd built from nothing, the purpose she'd found in the ruins of her old life. Tears ran down her face. "I don't have keys," she said quietly. "I threw them in the corner somewhere." Carmen found them in 30 seconds. By the time Sergeant Williams came back, Vanessa was unchained and sitting with her patients explaining what was happening. Some cried. Some nodded with the tired acceptance of people used to losing everything. All of them thanked her. "You're an angel, Miss Vanessa," Mr. Patterson said, gripping her hand with both of his. "I'm just a nurse who got stubborn," she replied, forcing a smile. The evacuation took an hour. Dr. Patel loaded 5 patients into his car. Pastor Raymond arrived with a church van and took 8 more to the Cleveland Avenue Baptist shelter. Marcus showed up with his truck and drove 4 to a free clinic on the east side. Carmen organized phone numbers and medication schedules, making sure everyone knew where to go for follow-up care. By 11:30, the warehouse was empty, except for Theo, Vanessa, Carmen, and the supplies they'd packed into cardboard boxes. The inspector walked through one last time, checking rooms. He stopped in front of Vanessa. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "my daughter has cerebral palsy. Can't get proper care because insurance won't cover her therapy. I know the system's broken." He paused. "Get the permits. Fix the building. Do it right. I'll fast-track your inspections where I can." He left without waiting for a response. Sergeant Williams was the last to go. He stood at the door looking at Vanessa. "My brother's name is Danny. He's been homeless for 3 years. Drug addiction, mental health issues. I've tried everything." He pulled out his wallet and handed Vanessa a business card. "When you reopen, and I hope you do call me, I'll make sure Danny knows where to find you." Then he was gone too. The warehouse fell silent. Vanessa sat in her wheelchair, staring at the empty cots, the abandoned pharmacy shelves, the dream that had just been ripped away. 6 months, she said, her voice hollow. "Maybe 8. You heard him." "We'll make it 4, Theo said. "With what money?" $300,000. She laughed bitterly. "I've got $200 in my bank account. You run a diner, not a corporation. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money?" "We'll figure it out." "How?" Theo didn't have an answer. His phone rang. Nina's name on the screen. "Tell me you've got good news," Theo said. "Depends on your definition. I filed for nonprofit status last night. Expedited processing. But here's the thing, we need a physical location, an actual legal address. The warehouse doesn't qualify because it's condemned." "We know, we just got kicked out." "Yeah, I heard. Building inspector called me an hour ago. Wanted to make sure I knew about the violations." Nina's voice shifted. "But there might be another option. How attached are you to the diner?" Theo's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "The building has a second floor, right? The apartment where you and Trevor live." "Yeah." "How big is it?" "Maybe 800 square feet. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom." "Why?" "Because I've been looking at zoning laws all night. Your building is already zoned for commercial use. The health department has you licensed for food service. If we can convert the second floor into a clinic space, we could operate legally out of there while we work on the warehouse." Theo's mind raced. The apartment where he and Trevor lived, where Marie had died, where he'd spent 3 years hiding from the world. "We'd have to move out," he said slowly. "Temporarily. Until the warehouse is ready. 6 months, maybe less." "Where would we live?" "With me. I've got a spare bedroom. It's small, but it's yours." Theo looked at Vanessa. She was watching him, hope and fear fighting on her face. "How fast can we make it happen?" "If you're serious, 2 weeks. We'd need to install medical-grade sinks, exam tables, proper storage. But it's doable." Nina paused. "Theo, are you sure you'd be giving up your home?" "It's not my home. It's just where I sleep." He looked at Vanessa. "She needs a home. These people need a home. Let's give them one." Vanessa's hand went to her mouth. Theo, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. Carmen let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. Theo looked at his phone. Nina, do it. File whatever paperwork you need. We're converting the apartment. You're a good man, Theodore Johnson. I'm just a man who found something worth fighting for. He hung up. Vanessa wheeled over to him, grabbed his hand. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough. Don't thank me yet. We still need $300,000 to fix the warehouse. One problem at a time, Carmen said. Right now, let's focus on getting the diner clinic running. They spent the next hour loading supplies into Theo's truck. Medications, bandages, the hand-drawn patient charts, everything that could be saved. As they worked, Vanessa told stories. About Mr. Patterson, who'd been a factory worker before the plant closed. About Sarah, the young mother, whose boyfriend had left when the baby got sick. About Michael, the diabetic veteran, who'd lost his benefits over a paperwork error and couldn't afford his insulin. They're not statistics, Vanessa said, carefully packing syringes into a box. They're people with names and stories and families. They just got lost in the cracks. Then we'll pull them out, Theo said. By 1 p.m., the truck was loaded. They stood in the empty warehouse one last time. We'll be back, Theo promised. This building will be a real clinic, legal, safe. Everything these people deserve. I believe you, Vanessa said quietly. They drove to the diner. Trevor was waiting outside, confused and worried. Dad, what's going on? Carmen called and said something about police. Long story, son. Come inside. We need to talk. They sat in a booth. Theo, Trevor, Vanessa, and Carmen and Theo explained everything. The warehouse, the eviction, the plan to convert the apartment into a temporary clinic. Trevor listened without interrupting. When Theo finished, his son was quiet for a long moment. So we're moving in with Aunt Nina. For a few months, until we can afford to fix the warehouse. And we're turning our apartment into a hospital. A clinic, not quite a hospital. Trevor looked at Vanessa. The lady who asks for leftovers every Tuesday. That's me, Vanessa said softly. Trevor thought about it. Then he stood up, walked to the counter, and came back with a jar. The tip jar from the register. He dumped it on the table. Mostly singles and quarters, maybe $80 total. For the clinic, Trevor said. It's not much, but it's a start. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Trevor. My mom used to say that helping people is never a waste of time. Trevor's voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. I think she'd like what you're doing. Theo pulled his son into a hug, holding him tight. Over the next 2 weeks, Theo's life became a blur of permits and contractors and supply orders. Nina filed paperwork with the city. James, the contractor, transformed the apartment, tearing out the bedroom walls and installing medical sinks and exam stations. Dr. Patel coordinated with other volunteer doctors, setting up schedules. Pastor Raymond's church collected donations, not much, but enough to buy basic equipment. Theo and Trevor moved into Nina's spare bedroom. It was cramped and awkward, but it worked. On a Friday afternoon, 2 weeks after the eviction, the health department inspector came to the diner. She was a stern woman in her 50s, who'd probably seen every scam and shortcut in the book. She spent 3 hours going through the converted apartment with a clipboard, checking sinks, testing outlets, measuring square footage, taking photos. Theo, Vanessa, and Nina waited downstairs in the diner, barely breathing. Finally, the inspector came down. You pass, she said simply. Conditional license for a free clinic renewable in 6 months pending inspection. You can open Monday. Vanessa burst into tears. Nina pumped her fist in the air. Theo just stood there, feeling 3 years of grief and darkness finally crack open to let in light. That Sunday word spread through Cleveland's homeless community like electricity through wire. The clinic was reopening. Different location, same care, same woman who never turned anyone away. Monday morning at 7 a.m., there were already 15 people waiting outside the diner when Theo unlocked the door. Mr. Patterson was first in line, leaning on a cane, his arm healed, but his gratitude infinite. "Told you she was an angel," he said to the man behind him. Vanessa sat up in the apartment-turned-clinic, Dr. Patel beside her, Carmen organizing patient files. The first patient was a woman with an infected cut on her hand. Simple, fixable. The kind of thing that should never require a miracle, but in America's broken healthcare system often did. Vanessa cleaned the wound, prescribed antibiotics, bandaged it carefully. "No charge," she said. "Come back in 3 days so I can check it." The woman cried. By noon, they'd seen 20 patients. By 3 p.m., 30. By closing time at 6 p.m., they'd treated 42 people. Exhausted, Vanessa wheeled herself downstairs to the diner, where Theo was closing up for the day. "How'd it go?" he asked. "We saved some lives today," she said simply. "Good." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Theo," Vanessa said quietly, "why are you doing this? Really? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. You gave up your home. Why?" Theo thought about Marie, about her last words to him in the hospital. "Don't waste the love I'm leaving behind. Give it to someone who needs it. Because you reminded me what my wife looked like," he said. "Stubborn, fierce, refusing to surrender even when the world said she should. And because maybe helping you is how I finally figure out how to help myself." Vanessa reached across the table and took his hand. Neither of them moved for a long time. Outside, Cleveland moved through its evening. Cars passed. People walked home from work. Somewhere a baby cried. Somewhere a dog barked. Ordinary life continuing all around them. But inside the diner, something extraordinary was beginning. 2 broken people, a widower and a paralyzed nurse, building something that refused to let brokenness be the end of the story. The clinic ran 5 days a week, treating hundreds of patients a month, saving lives that the system had declared too expensive to be worth saving. But the warehouse sat empty, condemned, waiting. $300,000 might as well have been $3 million. Then one Tuesday evening in December, 6 weeks after the clinic opened, a man walked into the diner. He was in his 50s, expensive suit, the kind of face you see in corporate boardrooms. "I'm looking for Vanessa Reed," he said. Theo's protective instincts flared. "Who's asking?" "My name is David Chen. I'm a hospital administrator at University Hospitals, and I'd like to talk to Miss Reed about a very large donation." Theo's heart stopped. "She's upstairs. I'll get her." 5 minutes later, Vanessa sat across from David Chen in a diner booth, Theo beside her. "Miss Reed," David said, "3 months ago you treated a homeless man named Robert Patterson for an infected arm." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Mr. Patterson? Yes. He came to the warehouse clinic. How do you know?" "Robert Patterson is my uncle." David's voice caught. "He disappeared 4 years ago after my aunt died. Mental health crisis. We searched for him, filed missing persons reports. Nothing. Then 2 weeks ago he showed up at my parents' house. Clean, sober, healthy. Said an angel in a wheelchair saved his life and helped him get into rehab." Vanessa's hand went to her mouth. "I didn't believe him at first," David continued. "Thought it was delusion. But he had your name, the address of the warehouse. So I investigated, found out about the clinic, about the eviction, about this place." He pulled an envelope from his jacket and placed it on the table. "This is a cashier's check for $350,000 for the warehouse renovation." Dead silence. Vanessa stared at the envelope like it might vanish if she touched it. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "You already did. You gave me back my uncle. This is just returning the favor." "But this is you getting the building you need to keep saving people like Uncle Robert." David stood. "Get your warehouse fixed, Miss Reed. Hire the contractors, buy the equipment, build something that lasts. And when you open, I'm putting you in touch with every hospital administrator I know, because what you're doing matters." He walked out before anyone could respond. Theo, Vanessa, and Carmen sat frozen, staring at the envelope on the table. Finally, Vanessa picked it up with shaking hands. "Is this real?" she whispered. Theo opened it. Inside, a cashier's check. $350,000, made out to the Vanessa Free Clinic. "It's real," he said. Vanessa started laughing and crying at the same time. Carmen was shouting. Theo felt his own eyes burning. "We can fix the warehouse," Vanessa said through tears. "We can do it right, legal, safe, everything." "We can give them a real home," Theo agreed. They sat there, holding each other, three people who'd been broken by life and somehow found each other in the ruins. Outside, December, snow started falling over Cleveland. Inside, a miracle was taking root. The war wasn't over. There would be setbacks, challenges, bureaucracy, and battles ahead. But for the first time in 3 years, Theo Johnson believed in miracles again. And Vanessa Reed, paralyzed, penniless, and unstoppable, had just proven that angels don't need wings. Sometimes they just need a wheelchair and a stubborn refusal to let suffering have the last word. The check sat in Theo's safe for 3 days before any of them could believe it was real enough to deposit. On Thursday morning, Vanessa wheeled into the bank with Theo beside her, the envelope in her lap, like she was carrying something made of glass that might shatter if she moved too fast. The teller took one look at the amount and called the manager. The manager looked at the check, looked at Vanessa in her wheelchair, looked at Theo in his diner work shirt, and his expression said he was trying to figure out if this was fraud or a miracle. "This is legitimate," the manager asked. "Call University Hospitals and ask for David Chen," Theo said. "He'll confirm it." The manager made the call, came back 5 minutes later with a different expression entirely. "Mr. Chen speaks very highly of you, Miss Reed. He said to tell you his uncle is 2 months sober and asking about volunteer opportunities at the new clinic." Vanessa's eyes filled. "Tell him Mr. Patterson is welcome any time." The money cleared. $350,000 in the Vanessa Free Clinic account. Nina had the paperwork filed by noon. By Friday, James the contractor had a crew scheduled to start work on the warehouse Monday morning. Sunday night, Theo couldn't sleep. He lay in Nina's guest bedroom, listening to Trevor's breathing from the other bed and thinking about everything that had happened in 2 months. A paralyzed nurse in a wheelchair. An underground clinic in a condemned warehouse. A son who'd given up his home without complaint. A miracle wrapped in a cashier's check. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Theo had started feeling something he hadn't felt since Marie died. Not just purpose. Something deeper. Something that made his chest tight when Vanessa smiled. Something that made him want to show up early to the clinic just to watch her work. Something that terrified him because it felt like hope, and hope was the thing that hurt most when you lost it. He got up at 5 a.m., made coffee, drove to the diner before dawn. Vanessa was already there. She sat in her wheelchair at a booth by the window working on patient files by the light of her phone. She looked up when Theo walked in, and her smile hit him like electricity. "Couldn't sleep either," she asked. "Too much happening in my head." Theo poured 2 cups of coffee, brought them to the booth. I keep thinking about the warehouse, about what it's going to become. A real clinic. Legal. Safe. Everything those people deserve." She wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. 3 months ago, I was living on disability checks and stealing electricity. Now we're talking about hiring staff and buying equipment and... Her voice caught. "I don't know how to process it." "One day at a time," Theo said. "That's what Marie used to tell me when things got overwhelming. You can't eat an elephant in one bite." Vanessa laughed softly. "Your wife sounds like she was something special." She was. Theo looked out the window at Cleveland waking up. Stubborn, fierce, couldn't stand watching people suffer without trying to help. "Kind of reminds me of someone else I know." Vanessa met his eyes. Theo, I'm just saying you've got good company. He took a sip of coffee. Marie would have liked you, would have probably chained herself to that shelf right beside you. I would have liked her too. Vanessa's voice went quiet. Can I ask you something? Does it feel like betrayal? Helping me, building this clinic, moving on with your life. Theo thought about that. Really thought about it. 3 months ago, I would have said yes. I spent 3 years treating grief like a job I couldn't quit. Like if I stopped hurting, I'd be dishonoring her memory. He looked at Vanessa. But you know what I think now. I think Marie would be furious if she knew I'd spent 3 years just existing instead of living. She spent her last year giving everything she had to help people. The best way I can honor that is to do the same. By helping a broke paralyzed nurse run an illegal clinic. By helping a brilliant stubborn woman save lives nobody else will save. Theo reached across the table and took her hand. You're not a charity case, Vanessa. You're the most remarkable person I've met since my wife died, and helping you doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like finally remembering how to be the man she married. Vanessa's eyes were wet. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just let me keep showing up. They sat like that, hands clasped across the table, until the sun came up over Cleveland and the city started moving around them. Monday morning, James and his crew arrived at the warehouse with trucks full of equipment. Theo closed the diner for the day and met them there. Vanessa came too, Carmen pushing her wheelchair over cracked sidewalk. The inspector who'd shut them down was there waiting. He nodded at Vanessa. Miss Reed, ready to do this right? More than ready. Good. I'll be checking in weekly. Any corners cut, any code violations, we shut it down again. Understood? Understood. The inspector handed James a folder thick with permits. You've got 6 months. Make them count. The renovation was brutal. Electrical work took 3 weeks. Turned out the wiring was even worse than they'd thought, corroded and dangerous and held together mostly by prayer. The plumbing was a nightmare. They had to jackhammer through concrete to install new pipes. The HVAC system required cutting holes in the roof. Every day brought new problems, new costs, new delays. But the check David Chen had written was enough to cover it all barely. James worked magic, calling in favors from subcontractors, buying materials at cost, putting in extra hours without charging for them. Why are you doing this? Theo asked him one afternoon in February, watching James rewire an electrical panel in the freezing warehouse. My daughter's got type 1 diabetes, James said without looking up. Last year her insulin cost went from $300 a month to $900. Insurance only covers half. I'm a contractor, and I can barely afford to keep her alive. What are people supposed to do when they can't afford their own lives? He finished connecting a wire. So yeah, I'll work cheap for a clinic that won't turn people away because they're poor. Someone's got to fix this broken system. By March, the warehouse had walls and working toilets and lights that didn't flicker. By April, they had exam rooms and a pharmacy and a waiting area with actual chairs instead of cots. By May, they had everything except the final inspection. The health department sent the same stern woman who'd approved the diner clinic. She spent 2 full days going through every room with her clipboard, and Theo, aged 10 years, watching her check boxes and frown at corners and take photos of things he couldn't identify. On the second day, she found Vanessa in what would become the main exam room. Miss Reed, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing this? You could have taken that money and moved to Florida, started over somewhere easy. Why pour everything into a free clinic in Cleveland? Vanessa looked at the woman for a long moment. Because 3 years ago, a truck driver fell asleep and crushed my spine, and every hospital in this city told me I was too broken to be worth hiring. I spent a year feeling worthless. Then I found people who were hurting worse than me, and helping them made me feel human again. She gestured at the warehouse around them. This place isn't charity. It's proof that being broken doesn't mean being useless. That's why I'm doing this. Because everyone deserves to feel like they matter. The inspector's face softened. She made a note on her clipboard. You pass. Conditional license pending final fire marshal inspection. If he signs off, you can open in 2 weeks. Vanessa grabbed Theo's hand so hard, her knuckles went white. The fire marshal came 3 days later. Checked the sprinklers, the exits, the fire extinguishers. Signed the paperwork without drama. You're good to go, he said. Try not to burn the place down. Nina filed the final documents with the city. Dr. Patel coordinated with 10 volunteer doctors who'd agreed to work rotating shifts. Pastor Raymond's church donated furniture. Marcus delivered enough medical supplies to stock 3 clinics. Monica the nurse recruited 4 other nurses willing to volunteer 20 hours a week. The Vanessa Free Clinic was real, legal, ready. They set the opening for Saturday, June 1st. Warm morning, bright sky, the kind of day that felt like a promise. Theo stood outside the warehouse at 6 a.m. watching volunteers arrive. Dr. Patel with his medical bag. Carmen with coffee for everyone. James, the contractor who'd built this place with his own hands. Pastor Raymond with 20 church members ready to help register patients. Monica and her nurses setting up exam rooms. Nina with a camera to document everything. And Vanessa wheeling herself up the ramp they'd installed at the entrance, looking at the building that had gone from condemned ruin to functioning clinic in 6 months. You ready? Theo asked her. I've been ready for 3 years. She looked at him. Thank you. For believing in this. For believing in me. Thank you for giving me something to believe in. They opened the doors at 7 a.m. By 7:15 there were 50 people waiting outside. Mr. Patterson was first in line again, but this time he'd brought his nephew David Chen. Wanted him to see what his money built, the old man said. David shook Vanessa's hand. Uncle Robert's been sober 4 months. Got his own apartment. Starts a new job Monday. You gave me back my family, Miss Reed. You gave us back our mission, Mr. Chen. We're even. The first patient was a woman named Maria, 32, 7 months pregnant, hadn't seen a doctor since the pregnancy started because she couldn't afford it. Dr. Patel examined her, confirmed the baby was healthy, set up a prenatal care schedule. No charge, Maria asked, crying. No charge, Vanessa said. Come back every 2 weeks until delivery. We'll take care of you. By noon, they'd seen 80 patients. By 3 p.m., over 100. Fevers, infections, chronic conditions that had gone untreated for years. A diabetic who'd been rationing insulin. An asthmatic whose inhaler had run out 6 months ago. A child with an ear infection that had spread because her parents couldn't afford the emergency room. Vanessa worked until her arms shook, until her voice went hoarse, until Theo physically made her stop and eat something. I'm fine, she protested. You're exhausted. Take 30 minutes. The patients will still be here. They sat in the break room James had built, eating sandwiches Nina had brought, too tired to talk. We did it, Vanessa finally said. You did it. I just showed up. You did more than show up, Theo. You gave up your home, your privacy, your whole life, for this. Best decision I've made in 3 years. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. Can I tell you something? Anything. I'm falling in love with you. She said it simply, like she was stating a medical fact. I've been trying not to. Trying to keep things professional. But watching you build this with me, watching you show up every single day, watching you believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. Her voice caught. I'm falling in love with you, and I needed you to know. Theo's heart hammered. Vanessa, you don't have to say anything. I know it's complicated. I know you're still grieving Marie. I just needed to say it out loud because keeping it inside was making me crazy. Theo set down his sandwich, reached across the table and took both her hands. I'm falling in love with you too. Have been for weeks, maybe months. And yeah, it's complicated and scary, and I have no idea how to navigate loving someone new while still loving someone I lost. But I know I don't want to run from it anymore. Vanessa's eyes filled. Yeah. Yeah. He smiled. Marie told me before she died that grief isn't about forgetting. It's about making room for new love alongside the old. I didn't understand what she meant then. I think I'm starting to understand now. Vanessa leaned across the table and kissed him, soft and tentative and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Carmen was standing in the doorway, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. "About damn time," she said. "You two have been making hard eyes at each other for 3 months. I was about to lock you in a closet." Theo laughed. Vanessa blushed. "Get back to work," Carmen said. "You've got 100 patients waiting and you can make out later." They went back to work, treated patients until 8 p.m. when they finally had to close because everyone was too exhausted to continue, sent the last patients home with medications and follow-up appointments, and the promise that the clinic would be there when they needed it. When everyone else had gone home, Theo and Vanessa sat in the empty waiting room looking at what they'd built. 147 patients today, Vanessa said, checking Carmen's log. 147 people who got care. Just the beginning, Theo said. I hope so. She looked at him. Thank you for taking a chance on a crazy paralyzed woman with an illegal clinic. Thank you for reminding me what courage looks like. They sat in comfortable silence until Vanessa yawned so hard her jaw cracked. Come on, Theo said. I'm taking you home. I can get there myself. I know you can, but I want to make sure you get there safe. He drove her to her apartment, a tiny place she rented on the east side. Helped her up the ramp, made sure she got inside okay. At the door, she turned to him. Theo, about what I said earlier. I meant what I said too. We'll figure this out. Together. She smiled. Together sounds good. He kissed her goodnight and drove home to Nina's place where Trevor was already asleep. But Theo sat in his truck for a long time, watching the Cleveland sky turn dark, thinking about second chances and stubborn women, and the way grief could transform into something that looked almost like joy if you were brave enough to let it. Over the next month, the clinic became part of Cleveland's rhythm. 5 days a week, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., treating 300 patients a week, then 400, then 500. Word spread through homeless shelters and bus stations and tent cities. Free Clinic on East 40th. Real doctors, real medicine. No judgment, no bills. Dr. Patel recruited more volunteers. Monica trained nursing students from Case Western. David Chen connected them with hospital networks willing to donate surplus supplies. Pastor Raymond's church started a fundraising campaign that brought in $10,000 a month to keep the clinic running. And Theo and Vanessa figured out how to love each other in the spaces between chaos. Dinner after closing on Tuesdays. Coffee before opening on Thursday mornings. Sunday afternoons when the clinic was closed and they could pretend to be normal people on a normal date instead of 2 people trying to save the world 1 patient at a time. Trevor liked Vanessa. Liked that she treated him like an adult. Liked that she'd helped his dad remember how to smile. You think Mom would be okay with this? Trevor asked Theo one night in July. I think Mom would be thrilled, Theo said honestly. She never wanted me to stay sad forever. She wanted me to keep living. Vanessa's pretty cool. Yeah, she is. Are you gonna marry her? Theo blinked. I don't know, son. Haven't thought that far ahead. But he had. Late at night, when he couldn't sleep, he thought about it. Wondered what it would be like. Wondered if loving someone new meant being disloyal to someone dead. Wondered if he was ready. In August, the clinic treated its 5,000th patient, a little girl named Rose with asthma who'd been hospitalized twice because her family couldn't afford preventive medication. Vanessa got her set up with inhalers and a care plan and watched the mother cry with relief. 5,000 people, Vanessa said that night looking at the numbers. 5,000 people who might have died without this place. And we're just getting started, Theo said. They were sitting on the loading dock behind the warehouse watching the sun go down. Vanessa's head on Theo's shoulder, his arm around her wheelchair. I never thought I'd have this, Vanessa said quietly. After the accident, I thought my life was over. Thought I'd spend whatever years I had left just existing, taking up space, being someone people felt sorry for. Nobody who knows you feels sorry for you, Theo said. They feel awed by you. There's a difference. I feel awed by you too. She lifted her head to look at him. You gave up everything to help me build this. Your home, your privacy, your safe little world. Why? Theo thought about how to answer. Because safe was killing me. Because hiding from pain doesn't make it go away, it just makes you small. Because you showed me that broken people can build beautiful things if they're brave enough to try. He kissed her forehead. And because somewhere along the way, helping you became the thing that helped me. I love you, Vanessa said. I love you too. They sat there until the stars came out over Cleveland, two people who'd been broken by life and somehow found each other in the ruins and built something that refused to let brokenness win. The clinic kept growing. September brought 600 patients a week. October brought 700. They hired Carmen full-time as office manager, brought on 2 medical assistants, added Saturday hours. And on a Tuesday night in November, exactly 1 year after Theo had followed Vanessa into that warehouse and discovered her secret clinic, he asked her to marry him. They were closing up the clinic, last patient gone, volunteers heading home. Just the two of them in the waiting room that had once been an empty warehouse floor. Vanessa Reed, Theo said, kneeling beside her wheelchair. You're the most stubborn, brilliant, infuriating, inspiring woman I've ever met. You saved my life by letting me help save yours. Will you marry me? He pulled out a ring. Nothing fancy. Simple silver band with a small diamond. All he could afford. But it was real, and it was offered with a full heart. Vanessa stared at him. At the ring. At the clinic they'd built together. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, while Carmen screamed from the back office where she'd apparently been eavesdropping. Finally, Carmen shouted. I thought you were going to wait another year. They got married in December at the Cleveland Avenue Baptist Church with Pastor Raymond officiating. Small ceremony. Just family and the people who'd built the clinic with them. Dr. Patel, Monica and her nurses, James the contractor, David Chen and his uncle Robert, Marcus, Nina, Carmen as maid of honor, Trevor as best man. Vanessa wore a simple white dress. Theo wore the suit he'd gotten married in 25 years ago. They exchanged vows in front of people who knew what it meant to fight for something worth having. I promise to show up, Theo said. Every day, every challenge, every victory. I promise to see you, not your wheelchair, not your limitations, just you. The woman who taught me that courage isn't about not being broken. It's about refusing to let broken be the end of your story. Vanessa's voice shook. I promise to let you love me. To stop trying to carry everything alone. To build a life with you that's bigger than survival. You gave me back my purpose, Theo. I promise to spend the rest of my life showing you what that gift meant. They kissed and everyone cheered, and for the first time in 4 years, Theo felt complete. The reception was at the diner. Trevor had decorated with streamers and balloons. Someone brought a cake. Someone else brought champagne. They ate and danced and celebrated not just a marriage, but a miracle. Because the Vanessa Free Clinic was thriving, treating 1,000 patients a week, saving lives, giving people dignity, proving that compassion could be stronger than poverty, that broken people could build unbreakable things, that love could grow in the ruins if you were brave enough to plant it. And Theo Johnson, widowed father and diner owner, had found his way back to living by helping a paralyzed nurse remember she had wings, even though she'd never walk again. The honeymoon lasted exactly 3 days before reality came crashing back in the form of a phone call at 2 in the morning. Theo's phone buzzed on the nightstand of the apartment they'd rented together above the diner. Vanessa stirred beside him as he grabbed it, squinting at the screen. Carmen's name flashed urgent and bright. "This better be life or death," Theo mumbled into the phone. "It's worse." Carmen's voice was shaking. "Channel 5 just ran a story about the clinic. They're calling it medical fraud, saying we're scamming donors, saying Vanessa's not a real nurse. Theo, they're destroying us." Theo sat up so fast the room spun. "What?" Vanessa was awake now, her hand on his arm. "What's wrong?" "Turn on Channel 5, Carmen said. "It's bad." Theo found the remote, turned on the TV. The late-night news was running a segment with the headline crawling across the bottom, "Free Clinic under investigation for fraud." A reporter stood outside the warehouse, her expression serious and concerned in that way reporters get when they think they've found a scandal. Sources tell Channel 5 that the Vanessa Free Clinic, which claims to provide free medical care to Cleveland's homeless population, may be operating under false pretenses. Questions have been raised about founder Vanessa Reed's credentials, the clinic's financial practices, and whether donations are being used appropriately. The screen cut to an interview with a man Theo didn't recognize. 50-something suit and tie, the kind of face that looked trustworthy but felt wrong. "I'm Dr. Harold Mitchell, former medical director at Cleveland General," the man said. "I have serious concerns about Ms. Reed's qualifications. She claims to be a nurse, but my sources indicate her license was suspended 3 years ago following her accident. She may be practicing medicine illegally." Vanessa made a sound like she'd been punched. The reporter continued. "The clinic has reportedly received over $500,000 in donations this past year. Where that money is going remains unclear. We reached out to Ms. Reed for comment, but she has not responded." "Because we didn't know there was a story," Vanessa shouted at the TV. The segment ended with the reporter's concerned face and a phone number for viewers to call if they had information about the clinic's operations. Theo muted the TV. His hands were shaking with rage. "That's all lies. Your license wasn't suspended. You've got documentation." "My license was temporarily inactive," Vanessa said quietly. "During my recovery. I had to renew it after the accident. There was a 6-month gap where it wasn't active because I wasn't working. Anyone digging through records could make it look suspicious if they wanted to." "Who's Dr. Harold Mitchell?" "I have no idea. Never heard of him." Theo's phone rang again. Nina this time. "Tell me you saw it," she said without preamble. "We saw it." "Good. Don't talk to any reporters. Don't make any statements. Don't even look at social media. I'm handling this." Nina's voice was pure fury. "Someone's trying to destroy the clinic, and I'm going to find out who and why." "What do we do?" "You keep the clinic running. You document everything. Every patient, every treatment, every dollar spent. I'm filing defamation suits and demanding retractions, but in the meantime, we need to be spotless. Understood." "Understood." Nina hung up. Theo looked at Vanessa. She sat in bed with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the blank TV screen like it might attack her again. "We'll fix this," Theo said. "How they just told everyone in Cleveland I'm a fraud, that we're stealing donations. Who's going to trust us now? The 5,000 people we've treated. The doctors who volunteer here. The patients who know what we do is real." Theo took her hands. "This is someone trying to shut us down, but they don't get to win." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I've worked so hard to build this, to prove I'm not useless. And now, you're not useless. You're dangerous. You're proving that healthcare doesn't have to bankrupt people. That's threatening to someone. We just need to figure out who." By morning, the story had exploded. Every local news station picked it up. Social media was full of people arguing about the clinic. Some defending it. Many attacking. The phone at the clinic rang nonstop, with reporters demanding comment and angry people calling Vanessa a scammer. When they opened at 7 a.m., only 3 patients showed up. Usually, there were 30 waiting outside. Dr. Patel arrived looking grim. Half my volunteers called this morning. They're scared. Don't want to be associated with something that might be illegal. It's not illegal, Theo said. It's a hit job. I know that. You know that. But fear is louder than truth. Dr. Patel looked at Vanessa. I'm not going anywhere. But we need to prepare for others to leave. By noon, 2 nurses had quit. By 3 p.m. donations stopped completely. The website crashed from traffic, but when they got it back online, the donation page had been flooded with angry messages calling them thieves. Carmen was near tears. Theo, we can't operate without donations. We've got maybe 6 weeks of supplies left. After that, we figure something out, Theo said firmly. We're not closing. But that night alone with Vanessa in their apartment, reality felt heavier. Maybe we should close, Vanessa said quietly. She sat by the window, still in her wheelchair, looking out at Cleveland's dark streets. Just until this blows over, until Nina can fix it. If we close, we prove them right. We look guilty. If we stay open, we drain our money fighting a war we might not win. She turned to look at him. I can't ask you to sacrifice everything again, Theo. You've already given up so much. I gave up nothing. I gained everything. He crossed to her, knelt beside the wheelchair. We don't quit. Marie didn't quit when cancer was killing her. You didn't quit when hospitals told you you were worthless. We don't quit now. I'm scared. Me too. But scared people can still be brave people. The next morning, Nina called with news. Found him. Dr. Harold Mitchell. Turns out he was fired from Cleveland General 2 years ago for insurance fraud. He was ordering unnecessary tests and procedures to inflate billing. Lost his medical license. Now he works as a healthcare consultant. What's he got against us? That's where it gets interesting. He's consulting for Medicorp, a private healthcare company that just opened 3 urgent care centers in Cleveland. They charge $200 just to walk in the door. Your free clinic is hurting their business. Theo felt rage burn through his chest. So they hired a disgraced doctor to destroy us. Can't prove it yet, but I'm working on it. In the meantime, I'm scheduling a press conference for tomorrow. We're going on offense. The press conference was set for noon at the clinic. Nina coached Vanessa on what to say. Theo stood beside her, Trevor on her other side, all of them presenting a united front. 20 reporters showed up. More than Theo expected. Cameras and microphones and hostile questions waiting to be asked. Nina stood at the podium first. Thank you for coming. Ms. Reed will make a brief statement and take questions. But first, let me be clear about something. Every allegation made against the Vanessa Free Clinic is false. Ms. Reed's nursing license is valid and current. The clinic's finances are transparent and available for audit. And the only crime being committed here is that someone is trying to destroy a clinic that dares to provide health care to people who can't afford it. She stepped aside. Vanessa wheeled forward. For a moment, she just sat there looking at the cameras. Theo could see her hands shaking, could see the fear in her eyes. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. My name is Vanessa Reed. 3 years ago, a truck driver fell asleep and crushed my spine. I became paralyzed. Every hospital in Cleveland told me I was too broken to hire. So I started treating homeless people in an abandoned warehouse because watching them die was worse than breaking rules. She paused. This clinic has treated over 5,000 patients in the past year. People with diabetes who can't afford insulin. Children with infections their parents can't afford to treat. Veterans the VA system failed. We don't charge them because healthcare shouldn't be a luxury only rich people can afford. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Reed, can you address the allegations about your license? My license was temporarily inactive during my recovery. I renewed it before opening the clinic. It's valid. It's current. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. What about the donations? Where is that money going? Nina stepped forward with a folder. Complete financial records, every dollar accounted for, medical supplies, staff salaries, building maintenance. We're a registered nonprofit. Everything is documented and legal." Another reporter jumped in. "But Dr. Mitchell says—" "Dr. Mitchell lost his medical license for insurance fraud." Nina interrupted. "He's currently consulting for Medicorp, which operates for-profit urgent care centers in competition with the Free Clinic. He has a financial incentive to destroy Ms. Reed's reputation. That's not journalism. That's character assassination paid for by a corporation that sees compassion as a threat to profit." That landed. Theo saw several reporters start typing furiously. A different reporter spoke up. "Ms. Reed, if the allegations are false, why do you think someone targeted you?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Because we're proving that healthcare doesn't have to bankrupt people. Because we're showing that a paralyzed woman in a wheelchair can save more lives than a corporation with millions of dollars. Because we're dangerous to people who profit from suffering." She leaned forward. "They want to shut us down because we won't play by rules designed to keep poor people poor and sick people sick. Well, I'm not shutting down. This clinic stays open. And if anyone wants to audit us, investigate us, or drag us through the mud, bring it on. We've got nothing to hide." The room erupted with questions. Nina ended the conference before it got chaotic. That night, the story shifted. 3 news stations ran corrections. Social media exploded with people defending the clinic. The website donations page crashed again, but this time from people trying to give money, not hate. By the next morning, they'd received $40,000 in donations. By the end of the week, $150,000. People sent checks with notes. "Don't let them win. Keep fighting. My sister was treated at your clinic. You saved her life." Dr. Patel called. "My volunteers are coming back, and I've got 5 more doctors who want to help." Pastor Raymond showed up with a check from the church for $20,000. "Cleveland Avenue Baptist stands with you," he said simply. David Chen called. "Medicorp tried to pressure university hospitals to cut ties with you. Our CEO told them to go to hell. You've got our full support." But the attacks didn't stop. Medicorp launched ads claiming free clinics provided substandard care. Dr. Mitchell went on talk radio calling Vanessa a danger to public health. Online trolls flooded the clinic's social media with threats and harassment. Carmen started screening calls because half of them were people saying vile things about Vanessa. Theo wanted to hunt down every person making threats, but Nina told him to document everything and let law enforcement handle it. "They want you to react," Nina said. "They want you to look unstable. Don't give them ammunition." So Theo channeled his rage into work. Longer hours at the clinic. More patients. Better documentation. Proving through action that the clinic was everything they claimed and more. But the stress was crushing Vanessa. Theo could see it. She stopped sleeping. Stopped eating enough. Worked herself into exhaustion every day like she was trying to outrun accusations that followed her everywhere. One night in February, Theo found her in the clinic after everyone else had gone home. She sat in her wheelchair in the empty waiting room staring at nothing. Van. He used the nickname only he was allowed. "You okay?" "I'm tired, Theo." Her voice was hollow. "Tired of fighting. Tired of defending myself. Tired of being everyone's target. Come home. Get some sleep." Sleep doesn't help. I close my eyes and see that reporter calling me a fraud. I hear Dr. Mitchell saying I'm dangerous. I read comments from people who've never met me saying I should be in jail. She looked at him with eyes that held too much pain. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am dangerous. Maybe trying to help people when the system says I shouldn't is just arrogance. That's not arrogance. That's courage. Feels like stupidity right now. Theo pulled up a chair and sat in front of her. "Listen to me. You've treated 6,000 people in 14 months. 6,000 people who had nowhere else to go. You gave them care and dignity and hope. That's not stupidity. That's heroism. And yes, it made you a target because you're threatening people who profit from misery. but that doesn't make you wrong. It makes you dangerous in the best possible way. I just want to help people, Theo. Why does that have to be a war? Because the world's broken. Because systems protect themselves even when they're hurting people. Because changing things means fighting things. He took her hands. But you don't fight alone. You've got me. You've got Trevor. You've got Nina and Dr. Patel and Carmen and hundreds of volunteers and 6,000 patients who know what you really are. That's an army van. And armies don't surrender. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. What if we lose? We won't. But what if we do? Then we lose fighting for something that matters. And that's better than winning by giving up. She pulled him into a hug and cried against his shoulder while he held her and wondered how much more she could take before she broke completely. The answer came 2 weeks later. Theo was at the diner early one Thursday morning when his phone rang. Carmen. Her voice was screaming panic. Theo, get to the clinic right now. The police are here. They've got a warrant. They're seizing everything. Theo ran 6 blocks in work boots and arrived gasping to find 3 police cars outside the clinic. Officers were carrying boxes out of the building. Medical records, computers, supplies. Vanessa sat outside in her wheelchair, Nina beside her, both of them watching their clinic being dismantled. What's happening? Theo demanded. Nina's face was stone. Anonymous tip that we're operating without proper licensing. The warrant says they're investigating medical fraud and need to seize evidence. That's insane. We've got every license, every permit. I know, this is harassment. But the warrant's legitimate. We have to let them take it. Theo watched officers carry out computers that held patient records, medications that people needed to survive, equipment they'd spent months buying with donated money. An officer approached them. Sergeant Williams, the same cop who'd almost arrested Vanessa a year ago. He looked sick about this. Ms. Reed, I'm sorry. Orders came from downtown. We've got to take everything listed in the warrant. How long until we get it back? Vanessa's voice was barely audible. Could be weeks. Could be months. Depends on the investigation. People will die waiting for weeks, she said flatly. I know. I'm sorry. He walked away. They sat there watching the clinic being emptied until there was nothing left but exam tables and empty shelves. When the police finally left, Vanessa wheeled herself inside. Theo and Nina followed. The clinic looked gutted, hollow, dead. Vanessa sat in the middle of the waiting room, and for the first time since Theo had known her, she looked defeated. They win, she said quietly. We can't operate without computers. Without records, without medications. They win. No, Theo said. They don't. Theo? No. He pulled out his phone, started making calls. Marcus, I need every medical supply you can spare delivered to the clinic today. I'll pay whatever it costs. Next call. Dr. Patel, they seized our computers. Can your volunteers bring laptops? We're setting up a new system from scratch. Next call. Pastor Raymond, we need medications, everything. Can your church network help? Vanessa stared at him. Theo, we can't. Yes, we can. They took our equipment. They can't take our mission. We rebuild. Today. Right now. Nina was already on her phone. I'm filing an emergency motion to get the computers back. And I'm calling every reporter who'll listen. This is government harassment and it ends now. Carmen burst through the door with her personal laptop. I backed up all the patient records to cloud storage last month. We've got everything. They took nothing that matters. By noon, volunteers started arriving. Dr. Patel with 6 laptops and 3 other doctors. Monica with nursing supplies she'd bought with her own money. Marcus with his truck full of medications he'd called in favors to get. James the contractor with tools to build new supply shelves. By 3 p.m., the clinic was functional again. Different. Improvised, but alive. By 5 p.m., patients started showing up. They'd heard on the news that the clinic was raided. Came to see if it was still open. Found Vanessa treating people with borrowed equipment and borrowed supplies, and the same stubborn refusal to quit that had started all of this. Mr. Patterson came in with his nephew, David Chen. "Heard you needed help," David said. He handed Theo an envelope. $200,000. From university hospitals administrators who are sick of watching corporations destroy good medicine. Theo stared at the check. "David, use it to fight back. Use it to buy new equipment. Use it to prove that compassion is stronger than greed." That night, exhausted and overwhelmed, Theo and Vanessa sat in their apartment above the diner. "I don't know how much more of this I can take," Vanessa admitted. "You can take exactly as much as you need to," Theo said. "Because you're the strongest person I know, and because quitting isn't in your vocabulary." "Maybe it should be. But it's not." He pulled her close. "We're winning, Van. They're attacking us because we're winning, because we're proving that the system they built to profit from suffering is breakable. They're scared of us. That's why they're fighting so hard. Scared of a paralyzed woman in a wheelchair. Terrified of a paralyzed woman who won't stop saving lives no matter what they do to her." Vanessa rested her head against his chest. "I love you, Theodore Johnson." "I love you too, Vanessa Johnson." They sat there holding each other, while Cleveland moved around them, two people fighting a war they couldn't afford to lose, because too many lives depended on them refusing to surrender. The investigation would take 3 months. 3 months of operating with borrowed equipment and improvised systems. 3 months of attacks and threats and harassment. But the clinic stayed open every single day. Because Vanessa Reed had learned something important. That courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and showing up anyway. And she showed up every single day. 3 months felt like 3 years. Every morning, Vanessa wheeled into the clinic wondering if today would be the day the city shut them down permanently. Every night she went home wondering how much longer they could survive on borrowed equipment and sheer stubbornness. The investigation hung over them like a storm that wouldn't break, wouldn't pass, just kept threatening. But the clinic kept running. Treating 700 patients a week now, 800 some weeks. People who'd heard about the raids and attacks and came anyway because they had nowhere else to go. On a Tuesday morning in late April, Nina called with news that made Theo's hands shake. "The investigation's over. They found nothing. Zero evidence of fraud, malpractice, or financial misconduct. The district attorney is closing the case." Theo was at the clinic when he got the call. He looked across the waiting room at Vanessa, who was checking in a patient. Their eyes met. "We won," he asked Nina. "You won. Complete exoneration. And there's more. Remember I said I was digging into Medicorp and Dr. Mitchell?" "Yeah. I've got emails. Internal communications showing Medicorp paid Mitchell to discredit the clinic. Paid for the fake news story. Paid for the anonymous tip that triggered the police raid. All of it documented." Theo's rage was immediate and hot. "They tried to destroy us deliberately. And now they're going to pay for it. I'm filing a lawsuit this afternoon. Defamation, tortious interference, abuse of process. We're going after them for everything." "How much?" $10 million, and I plan to win." Theo hung up and walked over to Vanessa. She looked up at him, saw his face, and her expression shifted from exhaustion to hope. "Tell me something good," she said. "Investigation's over. They found nothing. We're cleared completely." Vanessa's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with her hands and tears spilled over. The patient she'd been checking, in an elderly woman with arthritis, reached out and squeezed her shoulder. "You deserve that, honey," the woman said. "Everyone knows what you do here is real." Dr. Patel appeared from the exam room. "Did I hear what I think I heard?" "We're cleared," Theo confirmed. The entire waiting room erupted. Patients clapping, Carmen screaming, Monica hugging everyone, Dr. Patel looking like he might cry. But the celebration was short because there were still patients to treat and people to save and work that couldn't wait for feelings to catch up with reality. That afternoon, Channel 5 ran a retraction. The same reporter who'd called the clinic fraudulent now stood outside the warehouse looking uncomfortable. An investigation into the Vanessa Free Clinic has concluded with no evidence of wrongdoing. All allegations against founder Vanessa Reed have been proven false. The clinic will continue operating with a full exoneration from the district attorney's office. It was the bare minimum. No apology. No acknowledgement of the damage they'd done. Just facts delivered with the emotional weight of a grocery list. But it was enough. By evening, donations started flooding in again. By the next morning, they'd received $200,000. By the end of the week, $500,000. People were waiting, Carmen said, looking at the donation reports. They believed in us. They just needed proof it was safe to help. Nina's lawsuit against Medicorp moved fast. The evidence was too damning to fight. Internal emails showing executives planning the attack on the clinic. Payment records to Dr. Mitchell. Communication with the reporter who'd run the false story. 6 weeks after filing, Medicorp's lawyers called requesting a settlement meeting. Nina brought Theo and Vanessa to the mediation. They sat across a conference table from 3 corporate lawyers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, and 2 Medicorp executives who couldn't make eye contact. Our clients are prepared to offer $3 million to settle all claims, the lead lawyer said. Your clients tried to destroy a free clinic that serves homeless people because it threatened their profit margins, Nina replied coldly. $3 million is an insult. It's a generous offer. It's a joke. We're going to trial. And when we do, every email, every payment, every deliberate lie will become public record. Your clients will be famous for attacking a paralyzed nurse trying to help poor people. Good luck with that PR disaster. The lawyers conferred quietly. One of the executives leaned forward. What do you want? Nina slid a document across the table. $8 million. Public apology from Medicorp's CEO acknowledging the false allegations. Commitment to donate $1 million annually to free clinics across Ohio. And Dr. Mitchell's consulting contract terminated immediately. That's non-negotiable. You've got 48 hours to accept. After that, we see you in court. Nina stood. Theo and Vanessa followed her out. In the elevator, Vanessa started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind that comes when tension finally breaks and you don't know whether to scream or cry, so you laugh instead. Did that really just happen? She asked. That really just happened, Nina confirmed. Are they going to accept? They don't have a choice. The evidence is too damaging. They'll accept. They did. 46 hours later, Medicorp's lawyers called with acceptance. $8 million. Public apology. Annual donations to free clinics. Dr. Mitchell fired and agreeing never to work in healthcare consulting again as part of the settlement. The money arrived in the clinic's account 2 weeks later. $8 million. More money than Theo had seen in his entire life. More money than the clinic needed for years of operation. They held a meeting with their core team. Dr. Patel, Monica, Carmen, Pastor Raymond, James, David, Chen, and a dozen volunteers who'd been there from the beginning. We've got $8 million, Vanessa said. We need to decide how to use it wisely. Expand, Dr. Patel said immediately. One clinic can't serve all of Cleveland's need. We should open 2 more locations, East Side and West Side. Mental health services, Monica added. Half our patients need therapy and counseling. We should hire psychologists. Dental care, someone else suggested. Dental problems become medical problems. We should add a dental clinic. Job training, Pastor Raymond said. Healthcare's important, but people also need jobs. We should partner with employment programs. The ideas came fast. Vanessa wrote everything down, her hand cramping from trying to keep up. That night, she and Theo sat in their apartment going through the list. We could do all of it, Vanessa said quietly. Expand the clinic. Add services. Hire staff. We've got enough money to build something permanent. That scare you? Terrifies me. She looked at him. What if we fail? What if we can't manage something this big? What if I'm not capable of running a real organization instead of a desperate operation held together with duct tape and prayer? You've been running a real organization for 18 months, Theo said. You just didn't have enough money to make it easy. Now you do. I don't have a business degree. I don't have management experience. I'm a nurse in a wheelchair who got lucky. You're a nurse in a wheelchair who saved 6,000 lives through pure will and refusal to quit. That's not luck. That's genius. He took her hands. Marie used to say that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. You're called to this van. The rest we'll figure out together. She leaned her forehead against his. I'm glad you're crazy enough to believe in me. I'm glad you're stubborn enough to prove me right. They spent the next month planning. Nina helped them set up a proper board of directors. Dr. Patel coordinated medical staff for expansion. James started scouting locations for additional clinics. Carmen hired 3 office staff to manage the growing administrative work. By July, they'd purchased 2 buildings. One on the east side near Collinwood, one on the west side near Detroit Shoreway. Both neighborhoods with high poverty rates and limited healthcare access. The renovations took 4 months. James managed both projects, turning abandoned buildings into functioning clinics. They hired 10 doctors, 20 nurses, 5 mental health counselors, 3 dentists, administrative staff, maintenance workers, security. The original warehouse clinic remained the flagship location. But now it had siblings. Now it was part of something bigger. They opened the East Side Clinic in November. 200 people showed up the first day. The West Side Clinic opened in December. 300 people came. By the end of the year, the 3 clinics combined were treating over 2,000 patients a week, providing medical care, dental care, mental health services, prescription assistance, and job training referrals. The local news ran a story. This time it was positive. The reporter interviewed patients who talked about getting diabetes medication that kept them alive. A mother whose child's asthma was finally under control. A veteran who got PTSD counseling after the VA system failed him. And they interviewed Vanessa. Ms. Reed, you've gone from an underground operation in a condemned warehouse to a network of 3 clinics serving thousands. How does that feel? Vanessa looked at the camera. It feels like proof that broken things can be fixed if you refuse to accept broken as permanent. I was paralyzed and told I was worthless. Cleveland's healthcare system was broken and told that's just how things are. We both decided that wasn't acceptable. What's next for the Vanessa Free Clinic? We keep growing, keep serving, keep proving that healthcare is a right, not a luxury. And we keep showing up for people everyone else forgot about. The interview aired on Christmas Eve. By Christmas morning, the clinic had received another $1 million in donations from people across the country who'd seen the story. Theo and Vanessa spent Christmas Day at the flagship clinic, which stayed open because poverty and sickness don't take holidays. They served Christmas dinner to 300 people, ham and mashed potatoes and green beans and pie. Dr. Patel dressed as Santa. Carmen handed out presents donated by local churches. Trevor helped serve food, chatting with patients like they were family. Because they were family. That's what the clinic had become. Not just a medical facility, but a community. A place where people who'd been invisible became seen. Where suffering became survivable. Where hope became real. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Theo found Vanessa sitting in the empty waiting room, where a year and a half ago he'd discovered her secret clinic. You did it, he said, sitting beside her. We did it. No, you did it. I just showed up. You're the one who refused to quit. Vanessa looked around the clinic, at the exam rooms where lives were saved, at the pharmacy where medications were dispensed without bankrupting people, at the walls covered with thank you cards from patients. I keep thinking about that night you followed me here, she said. I was so scared when you found me. Thought you'd turn me in. Thought everything would end. Best night of my life, Theo said. Finding you. Finding this. Finding a reason to be alive again instead of just not dead. I never thanked you properly. For believing in me. For giving up your home. For fighting beside me when things got impossible. You thank me every day by being who you are. She turned to look at him. I love you, Theodore Johnson. You saved my life. You saved mine first. They sat there in the quiet clinic holding hands, while outside Cleveland moved through its Christmas night. Somewhere a baby was being born. Somewhere an old person was dying. Somewhere someone was hurting and scared and alone. But inside the Vanessa Free Clinic, 3 locations now serving thousands, proving that compassion could be stronger than greed, that broken people could build, unbreakable things that love could grow in ruins if you were brave enough to plant it. 6 months later, the clinic received a call from the Ohio Department of Health. They wanted to use the Vanessa Free Clinic model as a template for expanding healthcare access across the state. Wanted Vanessa to consult on opening 10 more free clinics in cities throughout Ohio. They want you to teach other people how to do what you did, Nina explained. Train them, guide them, help them build their own clinics. Vanessa looked overwhelmed. I don't know if I can. You can, Theo said firmly. You've been doing the impossible for 2 years. This is just more impossible. You're built for it. So Vanessa became a consultant, traveled to Columbus and Cincinnati and Toledo and Akron, taught nurses and doctors and volunteers how to start free clinics, how to fundraise, how to navigate bureaucracy, how to keep going when everyone said it was impossible. By the following year, 12 new free clinics had opened across Ohio using the Vanessa model. By the year after that, 23. The movement spread. Other states started calling. Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all wanting to learn how a paralyzed nurse in a wheelchair had built a healthcare network that served tens of thousands of people without charging a single dollar. Vanessa trained them all, gave them the blueprint, told them the truth about how hard it would be and how worth it would be, and how they had to refuse to quit, even when quitting looked like the only rational option. And the clinics multiplied. Across the Midwest, then the South, then spreading everywhere. 3 years after Theo had followed Vanessa into that condemned warehouse, the Vanessa Free Clinic model had been replicated in 17 states, serving over 100,000 patients annually, proving that American healthcare didn't have to be a choice between bankruptcy and death. The awards came. National recognition, speaking invitations, media profiles. Vanessa was invited to speak at medical schools and nursing conferences and healthcare policy summits. But she always came back to Cleveland, to the original warehouse clinic where it all started, to the patients who remembered when it was just her and a wheelchair and stolen electricity, and the stubborn refusal to let people die just because they were poor. One Tuesday evening in June, 4 years after that first night, Vanessa and Theo stood on the loading dock behind the warehouse, watching the sun go down over Cleveland. You ever think about that night I followed you here? Theo asked. Every day, Vanessa said. I think about how scared I was, how certain I was that everything would end, how wrong I was about what was ending and what was beginning. What was beginning? Everything that mattered. She looked at him. I thought the accident ended my life. Thought being paralyzed meant being useless. But finding this place, finding these people, finding you, that's when my real life started. The life that mattered. The life that meant something. You changed the world, Van. We changed the world. You and me and Trevor and everyone who showed up when it was hard. That's how worlds change. Not through one hero, through ordinary people who decide extraordinary compassion is worth fighting for. Trevor appeared in the doorway, 17 now, taller than Theo, planning to study nursing in college because he'd grown up watching Vanessa save lives and wanted to do the same. Dad? Mom, you coming? Carmen made her famous lasagna, and she's threatening to eat it all if you don't hurry. Mom, Trevor had started calling Vanessa that 6 months ago. She'd cried the first time, still got teary every time she heard it. "We're coming," Vanessa called back, but she and Theo lingered another moment on the loading dock, holding hands watching Cleveland's sky turn gold and purple and dark. "I miss Marie," Theo said quietly. "Still do, every day. But I think she'd be proud of what we built." "I think she'd be proud of what you became," Vanessa replied. "A man who didn't let grief make him small, who chose love over fear, who showed up every single day even when it was hard. Learned that from you. We learned it from each other." They went inside where Carmen and Dr. Patel and Monica and James and Pastor Raymond and 50 volunteers and staff members were gathering for their monthly family dinner. The tradition Vanessa had started 2 years ago because she said the clinic wasn't just a workplace, it was a family, and families ate together. The warehouse was full of voices and laughter and the smell of Carmen's lasagna and the warmth of people who'd chosen each other, who'd built something impossible together, who'd refused to let brokenness be the end of the story. Mr. Patterson was there 2 years sober now, working as a volunteer coordinator. David Chen came with his wife and kids. Maria, the pregnant woman who'd been their first patient at the new clinic, was there with her healthy 3-year-old daughter. The veteran who'd gotten PTSD counseling. The diabetic who'd gotten insulin. The asthmatic who'd gotten an inhaler. People whose lives had been saved because a paralyzed nurse refused to accept that her accident had made her worthless. Because a widowed diner owner decided showing up for someone else was how he'd save himself. Because ordinary people had chosen to believe that compassion was stronger than greed, and that broken people could build unbreakable things. After dinner, Vanessa stood to make an announcement. The room quieted. 4 years ago, I was living on disability checks in an abandoned warehouse treating people with stolen electricity and donated leftovers. I felt useless. Worthless. Like my life had ended when that truck hit me. She looked around the room at faces she loved. "But you all taught me something important. You taught me that value isn't about what your body can do. It's about what your heart refuses to stop doing. It's about showing up even when you're broken, about building something beautiful from ruins, about loving people so hard that suffering has to surrender." She paused, emotion thick in her voice. "This clinic, these clinics, they're not mine. They're ours. They belong to every volunteer who showed up, every donor who believed, every patient who trusted us, every person who looked at poverty and sickness and said, 'Not on my watch.' We did this together. And we're going to keep doing it together until every person in this country has access to health care without choosing between medicine and rent." The room erupted in applause. Theo stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, his heart so full it hurt. Because this was what winning looked like. Not wealth or fame or recognition, though those had come. Winning looked like broken people healing each other. Like a paralyzed woman proving that wheelchairs don't stop heroes. Like a grieving widower discovering that love could bloom twice in one lifetime. Like a community deciding that compassion was worth fighting for, even when the fight was hard. That night, after everyone had gone home, Vanessa and Theo walked through the quiet clinic one last time before locking up. "You tired?" Theo asked. "Exhausted," Vanessa admitted. "But the good kind of exhausted. The kind that means you spent your day doing something that mattered." They reached the front door. Theo held it open for her wheelchair. Outside, Cleveland stretched dark and vast around them. Somewhere in that darkness, people were hurting. But somewhere in that darkness, there were also 3 clinics with lights that never went out. Places where suffering met compassion, and compassion refused to blink first. "Ready to go home?" Theo asked. "Yeah," Vanessa said. "Let's go home." They drove through Cleveland's streets, past the diner where they'd first met, past the neighborhoods they'd served, past the lives they'd saved until they reached the apartment they'd built together. Small and warm and full of love that had grown from ruins. And as Theo helped Vanessa inside, as they settled into their evening routine worn smooth by 4 years of practice as they prepared for bed, knowing tomorrow would bring new patients and new challenges, and new reasons to keep fighting. Vanessa thought about that night in the warehouse when Theo had pushed open the door and discovered her secret. She'd thought it was the end. It had been the beginning. Because sometimes angels do need wings. And sometimes all they need is a wheelchair, a stubborn heart, and one person brave enough to follow them into the dark until together they find the light. The light that never went out. The light that kept burning. The light that proved love could heal more than medicine ever could if you were courageous enough to let it.